You don't need to have any particular art skills to do expressive arts. Even if you've had some bad experiences in the past where people have criticized you or you just really didn't feel confident in your abilities, you really don't need to worry about that when you're using expressive arts because you're not working on creating a specific product. So I'll give you two examples of how expressive arts really helped me through grief and how I don't have any particular talent in expressive arts, but I'll show you how it happened. So one way to go into expressive arts with grief is to ask a question, and you begin from that. And so when you're working with an expressive arts facilitator or therapist, they're going to help you become more comfortable with different types of materials and probably start off with things that you're more comfortable with. And then as you go along, you can expand into other forms of expressing. But you don't need to worry about that. They're also going to help you if you feel overwhelmed, maybe try to contain things by maybe starting with a smaller, say a smaller picture or giving you only a few materials to use. So they're going to help you with that. So you don't need to worry about those kinds of things. So I'm going to give you an example. And so this was in 2018 and I had been working with expressive arts for a couple of years already. So you don't need to compare what you're doing with what I'm doing, but I just wanted to show you. So the question I asked was, what does my grief look like? And so I did this in July of 2018, and it was about 6 weeks after my sister had died, and my mother died about 4 weeks before she did. And I felt like I was very overwhelmed, and I didn't know, was I grieving my mom that day, my sister, both? I was very confused. And, I was a grief and bereavement coordinator and counselor. So it's not like I didn't know about grief. I know a lot about grief, but it doesn't make you immune from the pain of grief and experiencing and going through the process. And you still need support. So I found this very supportive. So one day I started with just simple watercolors, and I'm going to show you my picture. It's very basic, and you could even call it childlike if you like. It doesn't offend me. I started with some watercolors. Then I did some writing about it. So what does my grief look like? It is bound by an image of suffering that renders my soul helpless to the indentations that hit. Each image, each assault on humanity, a higher purpose or no, is making its mark, deep and embedded. It flashes, and the hurt and the suffering lingers. The question as to why we need this suffering emerges like an axe for a turkey's neck, sudden and swift and pointless, because there are just so many dead turkeys here already. Do we need another one today? So this was how I was feeling at the time, and I don't know why this imagery of turkeys, and there's actually like a kind of a chopping block here that I had painted in my picture. So there's no rhyme or reason, and so when I work with expressive arts, I encourage people to just let things come out, even if it doesn't make sense to you. You don't need to try to analyze it. So later on, after I was writing, it came out that, the overwhelming feeling that I was having was helplessness. And so I was able to identify that. And the reason this was helpful to me was because at this time it was very hot in the summer, and my room was hot. I didn't have air conditioning, and I was having a lot of flashes in my mind about my sister at the end of her life and how she was hot and she needed a fan, and I was having a hard time sleeping. I couldn't sleep, and I was afraid, and I was overwhelmed at night thinking about her and her suffering. And so what happened through this process was that I was able to first identify that, what I was really feeling at that moment anyways was helplessness in what had happened to her, and in my trying to make meaning of the suffering. And in the end, sometimes we ask ourselves in expressive arts after when we're finished the process, like, is there a message in the art? And we don't go too deep into the surface, but just ask yourself, and if something kind of pops out of your head, then often write it down. So I did that with this painting here, and if you can see, there's like just a little bit pink in this kind of house with this gabled window here. And the message for me kind of came from that pink as hope. And my message was express yourself, better out than in. So for me, all these fears and these struggles trying to sleep, and this, it was actually kind of quite terrifying. For me, it helped me sleep after that because I got some of that feeling of helplessness and terror like out onto the written word on the page and also onto my painting. So that is one way that it can help you, even if you don't know ahead of time what you need. It often comes through the expressive arts.